What if the harder you try, the further it drifts? What if effort isn't the bridge to manifestation, but the very veil that keeps it from you? Maybe you've been taught that trying is noble, that the more you visualize, the harder you affirm, the louder you speak to the universe, the faster it will respond. But there is a secret the mind doesn't want to hear, because it means surrendering control. The more you chase, the more you declare it's not already yours. Neville Goddard whispered this truth like a sacred code. Assume the wish fulfilled. But assumption isn't acting as if. It's becoming. It's not about repeating until the world changes. It's about transforming so completely within that the world has no choice but to reflect you. You are not rewarded for effort. You are revealed through identity. And yet, most of us were raised to earn, to strive, to prove. So we bring that same conditioning into our spiritual work, unaware that our attempts to get are laced with the frequency of lack. And lack, no matter how beautifully spiritualized, is still lack. You've felt it. The frustration after a ritual, the disappointment after a full moon, that inner ache that whispers, "Why not me? Why not yet?" You are not broken. You are not blocked. You are simply being asked to stop seeking and start embodying. Joe Dispenza confirms what Neville knew decades ago, that it's not more affirmations or rituals that open the field of possibility. It's coherence. It's when your nervous system is no longer fighting your desire, when your body stops bracing, when your energy finally believes what your mind is claiming. Because manifestation is not a lottery. It's not random, not granted by invisible judges, not a cosmic slot machine. It is a quantum alignment of self-image, a spiritual physics that cannot be faked. If your inner identity says, "I still don't have it," then no matter what you say, the field responds to that vibration. The field doesn't hear your words, it feels your being. And this is where the truth becomes both freeing and confronting. You've been trying to start the next scene of your life's movie, while still clinging to the costume of your past. And so this moment invites you to strip away, not to add more, not to do more, but to pause, to become still enough to feel the version of you that already lives the life you desire. Because the path isn't made by effort. It appears when you become the one who has already walked it. You're not here to fight for your dreams. You're here to remember they were always part of you. The only thing that's been missing, is the decision to stop trying and start being. Quantum isn't complicated. Your identity is. We love to say the quantum is mysterious, that it's vast, mystical, inaccessible. But the real mystery has never been the quantum field. The real mystery is you. The real complexity isn't the science. It's the war between your current self and the one you're afraid to fully become. Every day you wake up not into a world, but into a version of yourself. And that version becomes the lens through which you collapse reality. It's not the external that shapes you. It's the invisible self-concept behind your eyes, breathing silently beneath your thoughts. Quantum physics speaks of superposition, the idea that multiple realities coexist until one is chosen. That choice doesn't happen with the hands. It happens through identity. The field doesn't ask, "What do you want?" It asks, "Who are you being?" You think the delays are external, but in truth the gap is internal, between the version of you who dreams and the version of you who dares to inhabit the dream without waiting for permission. That's the conflict. That's the tension. The silent loyalty to limitation, so familiar it feels like home. And here's the paradox that unlocks the door. You are not struggling against the world. You are struggling against the echo of your past identity, the one that whispers, "Stay small, be realistic, wait until it's safe." But the field is not moved by caution. It responds to coherence. When who you are, what you feel, and what you believe come into harmony, the universe has no choice but to match you. You are not begging reality to change. You are collapsing it into form with every silent decision about who you think you are. So, each morning, before the noise begins, pause, not to do, but to notice. Who are you waking up as? Not what are you doing, but who is doing it? Can you feel the version of you that no longer argues with the past? That no longer waits to be worthy? Imagine that version. See how they breathe. Notice how they hold their spine. Let them take up space in your inner theater. Because this isn't about effort, it's casting. You are casting yourself into the next scene of your life. And the moment you believe the role is yours, the scene begins to change. The common mistake is trying to create from a getting frequency. You say you're manifesting, but inside, you're still trying to get, to acquire, to earn. You may speak of abundance, but your vibration still whispers lack. And the field listens not to the words, but to the undertone, the silent frequency behind the intention. Most spiritual action, no matter how sincere, is born from a subtle tension, the belief that what you desire lives far away, and that your rituals are the bridge. But the truth is more radical. There is no bridge. There is only being. And every time you try to get, you confirm you don't yet have. This is what Emile Coué called the law of reversed effort. When willpower fights against subconscious belief, effort creates resistance. The harder you try to float, the more you sink. The more you try to sleep, the more you stay awake. The more you push to manifest, the more you cement the idea that it's not already here. This is not spiritual laziness, it is vibrational precision. Because true manifestation doesn't respond to want. It responds to embodiment. Not, I hope it comes. Not, I'll be ready when it arrives. But it is already mine. And this is where your power quietly returns, in the shift from desiring to dwelling, from reaching to radiating. Imagine for a moment, instead of writing your vision board as a list of dreams, you write it as a diary entry from your future self. You describe the day, the sensations, the decisions, not from fantasy, but from memory. You're not scripting to convince the universe. You're remembering what already exists in your field and aligning your emotional frequency to meet it. You are no longer a seeker. You are a participant in a timeline already alive. The difference is subtle, but sacred. It's the difference between fishing with bait and becoming the ocean itself. When you become the ocean, there is nothing to attract, only to reveal. And in that revealing, you no longer ask, when will it happen? You begin to ask, who am I being that this reality already surrounds me? And when that question becomes your baseline, you're no longer manifesting from desire. You're manifesting from identity. And that's the only language the quantum ever understands. You visualize the life. You say the affirmations. You even feel a moment of joy. But something still doesn't move. And maybe you wonder, what am I missing? The answer is neither new nor hidden. It's your self-image. Not the image you show others, but the silent shape you hold inside, the invisible architecture of your identity. Because in the quantum field, it is not your vision that collapses reality. It is the version of you that dares to expect it. This is not about pretending. It's about permission. Do you allow yourself to truly receive what you ask for? Or are you still waiting to become ready? Still trying to earn your dream through effort instead of embodiment? The Pygmalion effect in psychology reveals that our expectations quietly instruct our outcomes. You behave as the person you expect yourself to be, and life follows. So if you expect struggle, you unconsciously generate choices that protect that belief. If you expect magic, your body moves through the world as if that magic is already familiar. Here lies the silent fracture. You think you're visualizing a new life, but the one who's visualizing still believes they are the old self. That is the dissonance. That is the loop, because the quantum doesn't respond to your fantasy. It responds to your frequency, to the emotional atmosphere you inhabit without needing evidence. That's why thoughts alone are not enough. It's the fusion of thought and expectation that collapses potential into form. The synergy of what you imagine and what you believe you are worthy of. You are not a mirror, passively reflecting the world around you. You are a projector, casting your inner world onto the screen of matter. What matters is not what you're trying to get, but what you're silently broadcasting. So begin to notice, what version of you is being projected? Not in theory, but in action, in tone, in energy. When you walk into a room, do you enter as someone still waiting, or someone who already carries what they used to chase? Because the quantum doesn't wait for proof. It waits for coherence. And when your self-image no longer contradicts your desire, when the version of you holding the dream is the same one breathing in your body now, then everything shifts. Not because you convinced the universe, but because you finally stopped arguing with yourself. Before we move on, pause for a moment. If something inside you is quietly nodding, if a part of you feels seen in these words, then don't ignore that pull. There's something waiting for you in the pinned comment. Not more theory, but a mirror. A deeper look at what's actually shaping your energy and choices right now. Go see it when you're ready. It's already speaking to the version of you that knows there's more. Take this example. The woman who stopped hustling and multiplied her results. She used to wake up already behind. Her mornings began with tension in the chest, emails flooding her brain before her feet even touched the ground. She called it ambition. She wore her exhaustion like a badge of purpose. But underneath, she was terrified. Terrified that if she slowed down, everything would collapse. That without the constant hustle, the abundance she craved would vanish. So she did more, pushed harder, and wondered why the results never matched the energy spent. It wasn't until she paused, truly paused, that the truth surfaced. She wasn't building from vision. She was surviving from fear. Her rituals were frantic. Her energy was clenched. Even when she spoke affirmations, her body was bracing for disappointment. And no matter how elegant her goals appeared, they were being executed by a nervous system in defense. So nothing flowed. The field didn't respond with resistance. It simply mirrored hers. One day, something broke. Not a breakdown, but a revelation. She stopped trying to force a result and instead began rebuilding a new state. She replaced her morning rush with breath. She replaced her to-do list with identity anchoring. She asked herself not, what do I need to accomplish, but who am I being while I do it? Slowly, effort transformed into expression. Her business grew, not because she worked more, but because the version of her leading it had changed. Sales increased. Opportunities emerged without chasing. But more than that, peace entered. For the first time, she wasn't striving to create a life. She was embodying one. Because the field isn't activated by motion, it's activated by meaning. She wasn't climbing the mountain anymore. She had become the mountain, stable, rooted, inevitable. And from that place, she didn't need to hustle for success. She simply radiated it. Her identity became the signal, and the universe responded, not with applause, but with alignment, because she had finally stopped fighting her way into abundance and started being its source. Beware the hidden addiction to chaos. There's a silence you say you crave, but when it comes, you run from it. You speak of peace, but peace feels foreign, unsafe. And even when things begin to align, there's a part of you that creates just enough tension to feel normal again. It's not that you don't want ease. It's that you've been wired to survive in storms. And when the sky clears, your nervous system doesn't know what to do with the calm. This addiction to chaos is not loud. It doesn't scream. It whispers through small sabotages, through the urgency you invent, the conflicts you magnetize, the overthinking that never lets you rest. At its root is a familiar vibration, struggle, not because you love it, but because it's what you've known. It's what your body equates with motion, with meaning, with safety. When stillness arrives, it feels like emptiness, and the subconscious rushes to fill the gap with noise. You were trained, not by cruelty, but by repetition, to equate calm with danger, to believe that if nothing is falling apart, something must be wrong. But chaos is not clarity, urgency is not purpose, and the field doesn't reward those who rush. It responds to those who resonate, to those whose energy no longer seeks crisis to feel alive. This is not about fixing yourself. It's about gently rewiring the belief that stillness is unsafe, that joy must be paid for, that alignment is suspicious. Because you can only embody your ideal self if your nervous system feels safe in your expansion. So here's what changes everything. Stillness is not the absence of movement. It's the presence of coherence. When you sit in silence, not as someone waiting, but as someone remembering, your frequency begins to organize. And the field takes note. Because now, instead of reacting to internal chaos, you are finally becoming a signal of wholeness. And when your energy no longer flinches in peace, when you stop bracing for impact, you don't just manifest better. You live better. Not because you escaped the storm, but because the storm no longer lives inside you. Scientific study reveals the impact of emotional coherence on physical reality. The field doesn't respond to how much you want. It responds to how much you harmonize. Beneath every desire is a frequency, and that frequency isn't born in the mind alone. It's shaped in the space between your breath and your belief, your heart and your brain. When these two centers fall out of rhythm, your signal becomes scattered. But when they find coherence, your whole being becomes magnetic, not forceful, not desperate, just undeniably aligned. The HeartMath Institute discovered what mystics have long known. that the electromagnetic field of the heart is far more powerful than that of the brain. When your heart and mind pulse in union, your signal expands beyond the body. Your intention becomes a wave, not a whisper. But this isn't just science. It's embodiment, because it's not about feeling good in theory. It's about feeling as if the version of you who has already received is alive in this moment. That's coherence. That's what shifts the invisible into the inevitable. It begins with breath, but not just any breath. Breath synced with identity. Imagine inhaling, not to calm down, but to anchor in. With each breath, you're not escaping the now. You're choosing it. You let your chest rise, not to survive the day, but to signal to the field, this is who I am now. You don't need fireworks. You need frequency. Not loud emotion, but precise emotional calibration. Because what matters is not the intensity of your desire, but the clarity of your alignment. When coherence becomes your baseline, you stop chasing. You stop proving. You stop wondering if the universe hears you. Because now your entire being is speaking. Without words, without effort, just resonance. And in that state, manifestation is no longer something you do. It's something you allow, something you attune to, something you remember because it was always echoing within you, waiting for your signal to match. The silent sabotage of comparison in quantum work. It starts quietly. You see someone else succeeding. They manifest with ease. They speak about alignment, and part of you smiles while another part begins to shrink. Not because you resent them, but because their timeline begins to feel like a mirror of your delay. The mind whispers, "Why not me?" And without realizing it, you step out of your sovereign path and into someone else's race. Comparison is subtle sabotage. It doesn't destroy you with noise. It dissolves your coherence with doubt. You begin to second-guess your pace, your process, your path, not because you're wrong, but because your energy fractures. The quantum field thrives on wholeness, on singularity of signal, and comparison splits your focus. It disconnects you from the present self in favor of a fantasy self, the one you think you should already be. But here's the truth. There is no universal timeline. There is only resonance. Your manifestations are not late. They are perfectly synchronized to your internal readiness. The field doesn't work like a calendar. It works like an echo. When you're fully in your own frequency, aligned with your own becoming, everything arrives in divine precision. Not sooner, not later, but when you can hold it without collapsing. Someone else's success is not evidence you're behind. It's evidence that the frequency exists, that it's real, that it's accessible, that it's already being expressed in this dimension. And when you stop measuring your worth against another's wave, you remember that your quantum reality is private, not secret, but sacred. It unfolds not in public view, but in energetic truth. It's not a runway. It's a flight path designed for your altitude alone. You are not here to catch up. You are here to become exact. Exact in who you are. Exact in what you carry. Exact in how you hold the frequency that matches the world you've been creating from within. Because when your energy no longer flinches in the presence of another's light, your own begins to expand effortlessly. And in that moment, comparison dissolves, and sovereignty returns, not because you won something, but because you remembered that there was never a race, only resonance. What happens when you celebrate too early or too late? Celebration is sacred, but only when it aligns with embodiment. In the world of manifestation, timing is not just about when things appear, it's about when your body believes they have. And this is where many lose coherence. You either celebrate too soon, reinforcing fantasy, or you delay celebration so long that your nervous system never learns the feeling of having. Both extremes confuse the field, because the quantum responds not to dates, but to depth. Dopamine, the brain's chemical of reward, isn't only released at achievement. It's activated through anticipation and fulfillment. But when you train your system to anticipate a reward that never arrives, or worse, delay it until some imagined perfection, you reinforce the state of lack. You send the signal that you are still waiting, still proving, still not there. And so the field, loyal to your inner reality, reflects that waiting back. Premature celebration can also dilute the signal. When you applaud before embodiment, you anchor the dream in fantasy rather than identity. It becomes a performance instead of a confirmation. and your energy, instead of grounding, scatters. But when you celebrate from truth, when you mark moments that arise from internal alignment, you tell the universe, "This is real now. This is me now." The celebration becomes a declaration, not a distraction. It's not about forcing gratitude. It's about choosing sacred markers, pausing when the shift is real, honoring not just outcomes but who you had to become to receive them. Let your rewards match your resonance. Celebrate not to chase, but to anchor, because when your celebration is timed with embodiment, your body learns to recognize abundance as normal, and in that recognition, repetition is born, not because you summoned more, but because you finally stopped delaying what was already yours. The invisible factor that sabotages manifestation rituals. You light the candle, you write the affirmation, you do the breath work, and still, something feels missing. Not because the ritual is wrong, but because the reason behind it has shifted. It started from alignment, but somewhere along the way, it became reassurance. Instead of being an expression of your truth, it became a request for proof. And that shift, so subtle, so quiet, is enough to collapse the signal. The most powerful rituals are not those repeated with precision. They are the ones that emerge naturally from identity. When you begin performing rituals out of fear that you'll lose your momentum, when you feel anxious if you skip a step, you are no longer manifesting. You are outsourcing your power. The quantum field does not respond to how perfectly you perform. It responds to how fully you are. Your energy is the ritual. Your presence is the invocation. Your belief is the offering. Placebo collapse happens when repetition replaces embodiment. You do the thing over and over, but the energy behind it is thinning. You become dependent on the process rather than anchored in the identity the process was meant to support. But the moment you become the one who no longer needs the ritual to remember who they are, that's when the ritual has worked. Its purpose was not to be your lifeline but your bridge. There comes a time when the tools are no longer needed, not because they stopped working, but because you started being. And being is louder than any technique. The universe doesn't ask, "What did you do today?" It listens for your coherence. It listens for your knowing. The candle, the journal, the breath, they are beautiful, but their power is not in the act. Their power is in what they remind you of, that you were never asking the universe to give you anything. You were just learning how to stop forgetting that you already had it. Why most people never quantum leap? They're waiting to deserve it. You dream the dream. You script it, visualize it, speak it into the silence. And still, it hovers just out of reach. You feel the call of your next level. It's vivid, electric, almost within touch. But no matter how close it seems, there's a space, a breath of hesitation, an invisible pause between who you are and who you know you're meant to be. And that pause, that delay, that resistance, it has a name. It's the belief that you still need to earn it. You may not say it. You may have outgrown the old language of self-doubt. You know your affirmations, you've cleansed your limiting beliefs. But somewhere under the mantras and vision boards, a quieter voice remains. It says, "I haven't done enough yet. I haven't cleared everything. I haven't healed all my wounds. I haven't fully become the version of me who deserves that kind of life." And that belief, unspoken, unconscious, anchors your quantum leap to the illusion of merit. This is not about laziness. This is about liberation. Because what's keeping you from collapsing into your desired reality is not a lack of action or a failure of belief. It's the internalized idea that you must perform, transform, or purify yourself in order to be worthy of what already exists in the field. You have mistaken growth for prerequisite. You have been taught that before you can receive the extraordinary, you must prove you're no longer ordinary. But the field does not operate on moral terms. It doesn't ask, "Have you done enough?" It doesn't track your effort, your pain, your past. It does not withhold. It simply reflects. You are not negotiating with a cosmic judge. You are broadcasting to a neutral mirror. The question is not, "Have I earned this?" The question is, "Am I embodying the version of me who has already chosen this?" Because when you're still waiting for permission, your vibration says, "Delay." When you still believe you must become someone else first, your energy announces absence. And this goes deeper than just manifestation technique. It's identity work at its root. Most people were raised in environments where love was conditional. Approval had to be earned. Success came through struggle. So even as adults, especially spiritual adults, we carry that wiring into our quantum work. We tell ourselves we're not trying to prove anything, but we still move with the energy of apology. We still manifest as if the universe is watching, waiting for us to get it right before it delivers. This is why the leap never comes. Not because you're not aligned enough, but because you are still trying to qualify for the leap instead of claiming it. There is no finish line to cross before abundance becomes real. There is no final exam before you can embody your next chapter. The leap is not the reward for effort. It is the result of identity resonance. It is not a gift for those who are worthy. It is a response to those who have stopped questioning their worth altogether. Imagine light trying to prove it deserves to shine. Imagine a river waiting for permission to flow. It doesn't happen. Light shines because it is light. Rivers flow because it is their nature. And you manifest not because you've earned the dream, but because you are the frequency through which that dream becomes visible. The field is not asking for your resume. It is asking for your coherence, for the moment you stop trying to get and start allowing yourself to be. This is where the deepest healing occurs, not by clearing everything from your past, but by realizing your past was never a disqualification. Your shame is not a block. Your mistakes are not cosmic debt. The pain you've walked through is not proof you must walk further before you're allowed to rest. These are stories your conditioning taught you, and they are powerful. But they are not true. When you stop waiting to deserve it, everything accelerates. Not because the world changed, but because the signal you emit has changed. You are no longer trying to become the version of you who gets the life. You are being that version now. You breathe differently, speak differently, respond differently. You no longer wonder, when will it come? Because you realize it already has, and the only thing left is for you to receive it without apology. Write it, speak it. Let the words sink not just into your mind, but into your nervous system. I am allowed to receive because I exist. Say it when you feel resistance. Say it when you begin to justify. Say it when the old identity tries to prove itself one more time. Because you are not here to earn light. You are here to remember you are it. And when that remembering becomes more familiar than your fear, the leap is no longer a jump. It's a homecoming, a return to the frequency that was always yours. Not given, not granted, simply claimed. Because in the quantum you don't become worthy. You realize you already were. Quantum beings don't try. They collapse the identity. The old self waits for signs, for proof, for permission. It tiptoes around possibility, hoping the universe will confirm what it still doubts within. But the quantum doesn't wait. It responds instantly, not to hope, not to effort, but to embodiment. When you stop trying, you begin collapsing. Not collapsing in defeat, but collapsing potential into form, identity into matter, intention into presence. This is the secret that was never hidden, only misheard. You're not here to strive. You're here to remember. Neville Goddard didn't teach struggle. He didn't instruct us to beg the field. He said simply and profoundly, dare to assume, not cautiously, not conditionally, but as one who knows that the only requirement for the dream to manifest is the courage to feel it already real. And that courage is not loud. It's quiet. It moves not with drama but with certainty. It doesn't scream, look at me, I'm manifesting. It whispers, this is who I am now. And Dr. Joe Dispenza echoes this truth in the language of science. Your body must become so familiar with your future self that it forgets the old story entirely. That's the key. Not more affirmations, not more effort, but a deep nervous system recalibration that says, this is the new normal. You mentally rehearse. You emotionally install. Not to get something, but to become someone. Someone who doesn't wait. Someone who lives now. Because manifestation is not granted, it's mirrored. You are not sending signals to the universe, hoping it hears you. You are the signal. You are the broadcast. The field is listening to the vibration behind your breath, the emotion behind your movement, the identity behind your intention. And when all of that sings the same truth, reality has no choice but to respond. So stop asking, what should I do? And begin asking, who have I become? The answer is already written in your frequency. The leap you seek is not a future event. It's an inner decision. A decision to no longer shrink, to no longer justify, to no longer postpone your being. Because once you allow the dream to live through you without resistance, without apology, it does. And what if that's all that was ever missing? Not more time, not more proof. Just your willingness to collapse into the truth of who you already are. The quantum doesn't need convincing. It's waiting for coherence, for clarity, for identity, and that is already yours.